And we are recording. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Torél Beard, and Kayla. This is Kayla Beard, and this is our podcast, Beard Thoughts. Welcome. And today we have a very special guest, our father, Kevin Beard. Hey, Dad. How you guys doing?
Hi, guys.
Welcome on. Welcome on.
All right. So
All
today,
right.
do you want to take over, Kayla, or do you have anything?
Well, sure.
Hi, Bio.
Oh, can you see it?
Yeah, he's there.
For a second, I did. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt.
Hello. My boyfriend says hello. We wanted to talk about religion today, and we all come from varying perspectives on faith and our religious beliefs. And so we just decided to come together to have this discussion and answer a couple of questions and kind of dive into the implications of those answers. So once again, welcome, Dad, to this conversation.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I would like to start off by asking everyone, and Dad, you can go first. Do you believe in a higher power?
I do believe in a higher power. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. So yes, I do believe in a higher power.
Cool. Are we just gonna go around?
And yeah, I mean, if you guys want me to elaborate on that, I can. But I thought if you guys answer your question. But yes, I do believe in a higher power. I believe in Jesus Christ. I'm a Christian, and my faith is strong. That's how I live my life, quite frankly, based on that. My faith is in something greater than me, and that's how I live.
All right. Completely understand
that. Torél, would you like to answer the same question?
Yeah, so my answer is, I guess, the opposite. I don't believe in a higher power, at least not in the sense of one intelligent being that created everything and controls everything. I don't think that's very probable for a lot of different reasons. But basically, that just seems incredibly implausible that something like that would just exist. Like something like that had to have been created by something else, and that's never really explained, honestly, and there's no evidence for that. And so I could go deeper into that as well, but we can feel like we'll just keep going back and forth. So I guess you should.
I want to throw out there that I also believe in a higher power.
Awesome.
I don't believe in the Christian God, but I do have more non-specific beliefs about a higher power and spiritual things.
Okay, good.
Seems like we're like me and Dad on the opposite ends, and then you're right in the middle in some way. That's what it seems like.
What it seems like. What's the next question?
So my other question you already kind of answered, but what kind of, do you subscribe to a specific kind of religion? And what would that be? And you said you're a Christian.
Yeah, Christianity, yep.
So I guess I'll ask, why Christianity in your case?
Well, out of all, Torél used the word plausible. And out of all the religions that I studied when I was growing up, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, out of those three, those are the ones I really dealt with. And the one that struck and made the most sense to me was Christianity. Christianity because there is an answer to every question. There is an answer to everything. The other religions were based on a man's deity, for lack of a better phrase. Buddha was a man who was presented as a god. So, the God of the Bible, the God of Christianity, is a sovereign, all-knowing, infinite, uh, powerful God. And that just made more sense to me. With that type of a foundation, I can explain everything that happens on the planet. I can't do that with Buddhism. I can't do that with Hinduism. I can't do that with any other belief. So that's why I stuck with Christianity.
Interesting. And yeah, I guess I'll just throw out there that I did not have the same experience with Christianity. I kind of felt that I didn't find enough answers and I needed more. So that's kind of what led me to where I am, of not really having a specific religion. I don't identify with a specific religion, but I do kind of develop my own beliefs based on stuff that I read, from various resources. So I have learned a lot and taken a lot from Christianity, and I've learned a lot and taken a lot from Buddhism and Hinduism and other religious beliefs that have kind of shaped my general worldview. So yeah, Torél.
Torél doesn't believe in Christ or God, so he can't answer this question.
Yeah, no, I can explain why I don't believe in God. I guess what I do believe in, if anything, is that we're all connected with everything, which is a scientific fact, and we could go into that, why that's a scientific fact. But I guess that's why I don't believe in God, is because of everything that I've learned in science and exploring different religions and the origin of different religions and evolution of culture and history.
Can I stop you right there for a second?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
I didn't know we'd be drinking. I didn't know this was a happy hour. I mean,
if you want to get a drink, you get a drink.
I can get me a drink too. Y'all just leaving me out.
If you want to go get something.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm just teasing you.
Yeah. But yeah, so basically I think, because like what you said about you think that the God of the Bible and that idea explains everything that you see in the world. And that's what I thought growing up. And we were taught that the Bible was literally true. Ah, dang it, my video. That's gonna happen. That's gonna keep happening. But anyway, yeah, we were taught that the Bible was literally true, that God created everything in 6 days, and it's about 6,000 years ago, and made us in his image and gave us dominion over everything else, which might put us on some higher level than animals and the rest of everything else. And that is an empirical claim. That is an empirical claim about reality, about where we came from, and about what is actually out there. And so for me, it was always just about what is objectively true. What is true, whether or not you believe in it. What is true, like if every human died today, what would still be true about the world, right? Like, and so that's always what I've been on. And so from everything that I've learned, I found that the scientific method is the best way to answer those questions. And through the scientific method, we found out that the Earth is actually 4.6 billion years old, and the universe is about 3 to 14 billion years old, and that humans are one of many other species of animals on this planet that evolved over millions and billions of years. And there's so much overwhelming evidence for that, and that runs directly in contradiction with a fundamentalist view of the Bible, which is what I was presented with, which is why I don't believe anymore. And quite frankly, you can explain everything you see in the world with that scientific perspective as well.
Now, I do have a quick question for Torél. Mm-hmm. Would you personally, based on the description that you just gave, would you say that you identify the scientific method as a religious practice or a religious system?
No, because it depends on how you define religion, because I think that the biggest key for religion is it depends on some article of faith in some story or myth or idea that can't be verified. And that's the hallmark of every religion. Everything that we call a religion anyway, that's the hallmark of it. That's the one unifying thread, is that you have to have faith in something that you cannot prove or test. And everything that you think depends on that faith. And to me, that's not good enough, because in my opinion, another definition of faith is pretending to know something you don't know, just believing something without evidence, even though you have no reason to believe in it. And so you act as if it's true, even though you have no reason to believe that it's true.
Okay, so let me, if you don't mind me interjecting.
Go ahead.
I think what we have to understand, because you talk about the word religion. Religion just means religious is it just means a ritualistic. That's all it means. It just means it's a ritual thing. It has nothing to do with faith. It has nothing to do with God. The word religion has nothing to do with God. It just means ritualistic. You do things as a ritual. This is what you do, what you practice. That's what religion means, definition of religion. So take religion out of it, and what do you have? You have faith. And you said faith is believing in things in the absence of proof, and you're exactly right. That is what faith is. Here's the thing that I will throw back at you, is everybody, even you and all evolutionist believers, have a measure of faith. There is something that you believe in that you cannot prove. You mentioned that the world has been here for 3 to 14 billion years, but you or none of your people who believe in evolution were here 14 billion years ago. So you don't.
But the evidence is here.
No. Excuse me.
Yes, it is.
Just give me a second, please.
Okay.
You weren't there. So the evidence is here now. The evidence is here that I'm here. The evidence is here that God made me. I'm here. So I can say that as well. I can say the evidence of God making me is here because I'm here. I am the evidence. So the evidence of everything that happened 14 million years ago is here. Yeah, because it's here. The world is evidently here. But you weren't there.
Can I push back on that?
Please.
Okay, so imagine a detective on a scene. It's basically the same thing that the evolutionists are in. Your job is to figure out what happened in the past. You don't have anything going, but the evidence is right in front of you. The blood stains, the DNA evidence.
But see, this is where this.
No. Let me finish.
Okay, go ahead.
And it's basically the same principle, because all you're doing is taking the physical evidence that you see and piecing together what happened in the past, because you weren't there. The jury wasn't there. The judge wasn't there. The only people that were there is the killer and the person who's dead, right?
Exactly. And that's my point.
Yeah. But you can still
point.
find out what happened in the past. Doesn't mean that you, yes, you do. Because
no.
all you really trust in is the idea that by finding physical evidence.
All you really do what? All you really what in?
The only thing that you're putting trust in is
trust.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Exactly.
You want me to use the word faith?
No, I don't. I don't want you to use the word faith. What I want you to do is have the word knowledge and understand what that word means.
What does knowledge mean?
A fact means that you yourself and no other human being touched it, felt it, you discovered it, you saw it, you did something with your own senses. That's the only way anything is a fact.
I disagree.
Otherwise,
because there are
it's just a belief. Using your example as, the police officers who said, we're going to get this DNA, we're going to do this a crime scene, we're going to investigate, because they weren't there. They don't know what happened. They're piecing evidence together so they can guess and see what happens, which is why a lot of people get arrested and they're innocent. Because they put together enough evidence that they call circumstantial.
What if there is video evidence of the act happening? You see the guy, you see his face.
Exactly. Then you have proof.
What if I tell you that we have eyewitness evidence of evolution happening in nature? Eyewitness evidence measuring the change.
Eyewitness evidence.
Exactly.
Eyewitness evidence of evolution happening today is 100% fine. But eyewitness evolution that happened 14 billion years ago, you don't have. You're still You're still trusting something that you were taught. In fact, this idea of evolution, you didn't come up with it. You were taught that. You were taught that just like your parents taught you about Christ. Everything, you were taught it. You don't know.
Were you taught the evidence of evolution?
Pardon me?
Were you taught the evidence for evolution?
Yeah, I studied evolution in high school.
What are the evidence for evolution then?
I have no evidence for evolution.
Well, there is evidence for evolution out there. There are arguments that people use. So what are the arguments?
The evidence for evolution, the evidence for evolution is that we're here.
That's not the evidence.
What is the evidence?
It's much more complex than that.
Okay. Well, it's much more complex than that. But my whole point is this. This is my whole point. You have faith. You don't want to use the word faith, and that's fine because you're. I don't know why. I don't know why. But
because it depends. Well, how do you define faith?
A belief in something.
Believing in something that you have no evidence for, or believing in something that you can't possibly know.
Believing in something you can't possibly know, and you weren't there 14 million ago, so you can't possibly know what happened.
So you think it's impossible to know what happened in the past?
It's impossible for Torél Beard to know what happened in 1965 because you weren't even born then. It's impossible for you to know it. But you didn't see it, touch it, feel it, taste it. You don't know. You don't know.
Kayla, what do you think?
Since you don't know, you have to believe that this happened. You have to trust that this happened.
I would like to interject that what you're saying is true, but what you're saying also applies to everything, not just religion. It's everything.
Exactly.
So if you believe
people believe in ghosts.
If you believe in ghosts, you only believe it because unless you had a personal experience and you think it was a ghost, even the belief that your personal experience is an experience with a ghost is based on something that somebody told you exists.
Exactly.
If you believe that, long ago there was a war that resulted in,
calculators,
anything. Yeah. It's all based on something that somebody told you. Nothing that we, no knowledge that we have comes from, well, not no, but a lot of the knowledge that we have does not come from firsthand account.
Exactly. And that's my point. Every human being has a measure of, we won't call it faith because I don't want to upset you, have a measure of belief in something that you don't know for certain. And that's every human being. So no matter what you say, that is the only fact that exists.
So basically, I hear you saying you're rejecting the idea that you can know something by collecting enough evidence to support that that's true and disproving other ideas.
That's, if in the past where you were not,
if you're trying to figure out what happened in the past. Correct. So if you're trying to figure out how did this volcano get here? Was it always here? Did something create it? Did a god put it there? How did this volcano get here? That's a question, right? And there is an answer out there. We don't know what happened because we weren't there. No one was there to see it.
Exactly.
But there is a true answer out there.
Correct.
And so what you're saying is it is impossible to collect any evidence to find out what had happened exactly. It's absolutely impossible. There's no evidence you can collect. No matter, you can collect so much evidence that supports one idea and negates everything else, but no matter what, you can still say, I don't believe in that because no one was there to see it. It's impossible to know. So I don't care what your evidence is.
Exactly. You want to know why?
Why?
Okay, let's take that volcano, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That volcano is there. You go back and do carbon dating, do some geology stuff, do your science stuff, do your evolution stuff, and you find out that this is why that volcano's there, right? Mm-hmm. And that's your proof. That's evidence. Boom, proof. I wasn't there, but because of these calculations, because of the science that we have now, because of all this stuff, boom, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
That's your proof.
Okay.
My proof is there was a Genesis flood, and the flood turned everything upside down. And that's why that volcano's there. Who's right?
Well, the question is, do you value physical evidence or not?
That is physical evidence. See,
because the story isn't physical evidence. The story is a story. That's an idea.
Exactly.
But do you have physical evidence that story happened?
The story is the physical evidence. The physical evidence in that story is this.
The only evidence, okay, go ahead. Sorry. I'm sorry for interrupting.
That's all right. The story for the physical evidence, or the physical evidence is in the story, because this is what happened. Mm-hmm. The world was not designed the way it is right now. There were no volcanoes, okay? So what happened was when the flood came, the earth broke loose underneath, and it blew up. It had fire, it had water, and it destroyed the earth inside out. And that is how, because of the explosion inside of the core of the earth blowing up, that's how these volcanoes were shaped. So it's not a story of the flood and Noah and all blah, blah, blah. It's the physical scientific, which is a scientific fact, because there are Christian scientists who actually believe this, that there could have been a Genesis flood because of the way the Bible tells the story of how the earth was destroyed from the inside out. And that is how that volcano got there. That's science telling you physically how it was there. Not just a story about Noah and his 3 sons. Well, it's a story about the science.
What science in the story? Can you explain how you know that there were no volcanoes before that happened, before the flood? And what evidence do you know that there was a global flood other than the fact that there are volcanoes here? Because you're relying on the fact there are volcanoes here. How did this happen? We have a story of this flood happening. That's how it happened. That's your evidence.
And that's it.
My evidence is all of the measurements of tectonic plates and earthquake activity and drilling deep down and looking at the magma and measuring the pressure and doing calculations to measure how much area there is and how much pressure is building up and what's likely to happen over time after the pressure builds up. And so all of those are physical calculations that you can predict and then watch happen in real life based off of your predictions, based off of your calculations, which are ultimately based off of your physical measurements of what's going on. So that's my evidence.
And that's fabulous.
And that's the science. So my question is, you have a story that there was no volcanoes and then the flood happened and it broke open the crust. And that's really interesting. And when I believed in God, I thought that was very plausible too. It made sense. So my question is, what physical evidence do you have that there were no volcanoes before this happened? Do you have anything to date approximately when this happened? And how do you know that there were humans on the earth at the time that this happened, other than just this story that was passed down by word of mouth for generations?
Well, I don't know that there were humans on the earth at that time.
Do you have evidence for any of those?
I don't have evidence for any of that, except for fossils and anything else that you find around that volcano. The same science that you use to find all that stuff in the volcano is the same science that I'm gonna use to prove my story. Because the only thing that differs in my story is your story is the tectonic plates and all that stuff. And you can use all the technical terms, and you say the pressure over the course of a year. You say it happened over millions of years. I say it happened in 40 days.
The difference is my story is falsifiable. There's potentially evidence that you could theoretically find that would disprove my theory. Whereas it doesn't seem like there's any evidence that could theoretically disprove your theory, which means
your theory can disprove my theory. Your theory can disprove my theory.
But you're saying that you're using the same evidence that I'm using to justify your theory, so therefore it doesn't. So my theory doesn't, because my theory is based on the evidence, and so you're using the exact same evidence and interpreting it a different way. What I'm saying is, if there was different evidence,
your screen or mine?
Huh? I think that was mine. Are you still? Everything's still good?
Yep, I'm here. Yep.
Okay. What I'm saying is that my theory, and I'm going to say hypothesis, and also keep in mind we're talking about a very hypothetical volcano.
Right.
So
this is not alcohol.
We probably wouldn't find
it's just water.
Yeah. We're all getting loose. But you probably wouldn't find fossils around a volcano anyway, because of the way volcanoes form.
All I'm saying is you can take the same, you're in science and I'm in science, you can take the same exact evidence and prove something and disprove something. That's what science is all about. Or hypotheses are all about, based on what you find and what you do. COVID-19 is going on right now. And it is destroying everything. And everybody's nervous and everybody's scared. And many doctors are jumping on this and trying to find out how this virus acts. Well, when it first came out, it acts like this. You can catch it. If it's on the table, you can wipe your hand on it, you can get it. Oh, it's only through this. Oh, it's airborne. Oh, it's this. Everybody's throwing these hypotheses around, and as they study and study and study, they find out, oh, this is how that virus acts. And then once they find out how that virus acts, then they're able to say, oh, okay, this is how it goes. All these other hypotheses were wrong. But we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We may come back and do those and take those, somebody else will take those same tests and says, you know what? Just because we figured this out doesn't mean that it can't be caught on the table. Doesn't mean that it can't be airborne. Doesn't mean that it can't do this. So you can take data for a lot of different things, maybe not everything, and prove or disprove what you are arguing or hypothesizing.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me for a second. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Well, while you're doing that, I would like to say facts, as we call them, as we determine, using the scientific method, can be, repurposed. People, what Dad is saying, you have physical evidence and you have, studies that people do, experiments that people do, math, and then you have the interpretation of that information. And they're two separate things. You can't say, that, just because something is the most plausible, that is not necessarily how every person who encounters that same information is going to interpret it.
You're exactly right. And there are scientists who have the same information that Torél has, and they have a different belief. They have the same exact information. There are Christians who have the same information that I have, they have a different belief. So how is that? I mean, why is that? The reason is because everybody, going back to what I'm saying, everybody has a measure of, not to use the word faith, belief. They have, every human being believes in something that they cannot prove because they simply weren't there. Everybody has that. Everybody has that. When you guys have kids, there is nothing except for the video that you have, if you record this, nothing you'll be able to say to them to prove that we had this conversation. They weren't there. They weren't there. The only thing they will see is a video, and hopefully it's time stamped, and that will be the only evidence that they have that this actually happened. And heck, you could have created that. They don't know because they aren't here.
That's true.
They will have to believe what you told them. And that is the basis of every human being on this planet. We are all believers in something that we don't know, period. Whether it's evolution, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Hinduism. I don't know if Buddha wasn't around telling people what, I don't know. I just believe what I believe. And that's what everybody has as a measure of faith.
I think that's where our fundamental disagreement is, because I just disagree. I think that it's possible to know that certain things are true because there is physical evidence. And it goes back to what you said. It's based on what you see, feel, hear, smell, all your five senses. And scientific tools, all they really do is amplify your five senses. Microscopes help you see really small. Telescopes help you see really, really far. That's all it is just amplifying your own five senses. And
I agree.
And so what you're doing is just collecting physical evidence based on what you see. And I guess you are right. You have to take some level of trust that other people are also collecting physical evidence. But the whole point of the scientific method isn't just to prove yourself right. In fact, as I learned, doing my bachelor's, and every scientist gets taught this, the whole point is to prove yourself wrong, to try and find evidence to disprove your theory and try to disprove it as best as you can. If you can't, that's a pretty good theory, and you publish it. And then every other scientist wants to be right. Everyone always wants to be right. So they're going to try to prove your theory wrong. They're going to test it and find all the kind of evidence to prove it wrong. And if they, exactly. But the thing is, if they test it and test it and test it, and all of the physical evidence they collect don't prove it wrong and just support your theory and make it stronger, at some point you have to accept, okay, this is most likely true. We may not know for sure, but there's so much evidence that this is most likely true. And that is the case for the theory of evolution by natural selection.
Yep, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
You said it perfectly. this is most likely true. And that is the exact phrase that scientists should use. This is most likely true. This is most likely true. It's not 100% likely. It's most likely. That's why we believe it.
But 99% is good enough, isn't it? 99%
no.
is good enough.
No, it's not.
Well,
Yes, it is. I would say, especially if the other theory only has, like, if you have two competing hypotheses, one has a 99% chance of being true, the other has a 25% chance of being true. Which one do you personally think is most likely true? What do you think is true? Like, if you weren't around to observe that, what would you guess? What would you bet on is actually true?
So let me ask you a question. If 99% is good enough, if you want to buy this pen, it costs $1, you only got 99 cents. Is 99% good enough?
That's a completely different example. That's money. That's
also,
I know. But my point is that 1%, that percentage is your margin of error. So you're right. It's a fantastic percentage, and they have that minute margin of error, but there's still a margin of error. And in that margin of error comes your faith or your belief or whatever you want to call it.
My faith is only in the idea that enough physical evidence shows that something is probably true. If there's enough physical evidence for something, it's probably true.
I think the other issue with that is, as we said before, nothing is 100% certain. Like, unless you were there to watch yourself, pop out the womb, you can't really know with 100% certainty who your mother is. Like, you can go to the doctor and get a DNA test, and she can tell you, I'm your mother, and the DNA could be, convincing. But there's still that little bit of opportunity for you to doubt it. Not necessarily that it's wise.
Have you ever had a DNA test before?
What's that?
I'm not suggesting you do that because you're not my son or my daughter. I'm just saying, have you ever saw a DNA test? Because they do exactly what Torél said. There is no DNA says 100% match.
Well, yeah, exactly.
It's every DNA test you said it's a most likely, 97%, 98%, whatever. And the reason why is because there's so much DNA in our. I mean, you don't even.
There are millions.
You only have my DNA. You have your grandfather and grandmother on my side DNA, your grandmother, your grandmother, your mom's side DNA. You have so much strands of DNA in you. So,
well, actually, you really just have you and mom. That's all.
Sorry.
We really just have you and mom, to be completely honest.
Most of it is. You're right, but there's some strands that are from other places down the tree, down the family tree.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But that's where you have an issue of, okay, if you want to live in that margin of error, that's okay. Mm-hmm. But it's also, you're doing that with the awareness that there is a lot of evidence to suggest to the contrary. If I choose to believe that I'm somebody else's child, I can fight to believe that for as long as I want. But if all the DNA evidence and the anecdotal evidence from my family suggests that my mother is my mother, what?
It's a big conspiracy. You're adopted. I'm sorry.
What?
It's a big conspiracy. You're adopted.
Yeah, it's a conspiracy. Exactly.
The doctors, the government's in on it. Everyone's in on it.
Y'all are both going to have to talk closer to your mics because
y'all can't hear me.
I
think I'm talking too loud.
It's the mic, distance from your face.
I don't have a big boom mic like our host.
Yeah, well, neither do I, even though I'm co-host, but that happens.
Should get one.
I'm like one of our hosts. I'm sorry.
But this is a good segue into the other thing that we wanted to talk about, which is whether or not it's valuable to have faith in a religion or in spiritual beliefs of any kind. What do y'all see as the value of spirituality?
Well, you know, that's an excellent question because you're exactly right. Um, the value for me, and like I said before, there are millions of Christians out there. They have the same information I have, but they don't believe like I do. But the value for me is assuredness, being assured, being happy, knowing that um, there's something else after death. There is a reason why, um, you know, you guys were talking about George Floyd last week or your last podcast, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on right now. And there's been a whole bunch of stuff going on in the history of this world. Slavery, not just black slavery, Jews in slavery, all that stuff, killing, senseless killing, babies dying. My faith allows me to understand why this is happening and understand that in the future, have faith to believe in the future, it's all going to be eradicated. So it makes me calm. It makes me easy. I'm not hating people. I'm not so angry that I just can't deal with it because another black man died. I'm not I'm not down with that. One black man dies. What about all the black men back in the 30s and 40s and 50s? What about all those men who were just, when you walked down the street in Mississippi, you just saw black people hanging from trees? That happened. Well, I wasn't there, but so so all of that stuff, all that hate is in the world. It comforts me to know that that's going to be done with. It's all going to be done with. And when I die, and that's why I'm not afraid to die. I'm afraid of how I'm going to die, but I'm not afraid to die. All of that is just comforting. So to me, it's an inner peace. And that's why you guys don't ever see me, shouting and getting angry at stuff. Every once in a while you do, but angry at the world or anything like that. People ask me, why is it that this little baby died? The answer is easy for me because this is a sinful world. That baby could have been you. That baby could have been your baby. Be grateful that it wasn't. Be grateful that God blessed you. God, and here's another thing too, believing in the sovereign God. I believe that God knows and God loves everyone more than we could possibly love each other. And he loved that little baby that died. So to me, it makes me feel at rest that, okay, that baby's not going to have to grow up in this crappy, hellish world, but he goes back to God. So that's value to me.
Really understand and respect that. And just to be honest, all of those values you get from your religion, I get from, quite frankly, my lack of religion. I get from not believing in God. And because to me, like I said earlier, it is a scientific fact that we are absolutely connected with everything in the universe. Like, we're made of stardust. The atoms in our bodies are created in the furnace of stars that blew up, and that's how atoms are created. We're literally stardust. We are part of the cosmos, and we are the universe experiencing itself. And you could see that as either we don't really matter, or you could see that as we're all that matters, because this, to me, the idea that this is the only life we're going to get makes this way more valuable. Like, why, like, if I'm going to live forever for an infinite amount of time in paradise, why does anything here matter? Why does making relationships matter? Why does being successful or, not be suffering and poverty matter? Like, why should I care if what's going on if, I'm just going to have paradise for eternity? But the way I see it, everything that happens here is so much more significant if you don't think there's anything else. And that to me isn't really that's not depressing. That makes everything beautiful. We're like a flower. That's why real flower is better than a plastic flower, because you know it's not going to last forever. You know that it's beautiful. It wilts, it blooms at a specific season and then goes away, and you hope for it to come back. You know, but that's, if it was to last forever, you walk by, it would just be part of the background. You know, if it was always there, just be like a plastic flower. And
Yeah,
so the way,
ahead,
sorry, I'll finish. I'll finish up. But like,
take your time.
Yeah, I get comfort from that, and knowing that, to me, it's like when I die, it's gonna be just like it was before I was born. I can't remember anything, didn't feel anything, wasn't any pain, wasn't any sorrow, wasn't any happiness, but I didn't mind because I didn't care. It was just absolute peace. And if you think about the reality of what happened, all of the particles and all of the energy that make up my body were dispersed. They were in the trees, they were in the atoms, they were in my parents and in my grandparents and in the air. And then when my mom got pregnant, they slowly coalesced and formed my body and my consciousness. And the patterns were interchanged throughout my life, but that pattern of my consciousness stays the same. And when I die, it slowly fades, and those particles go back and slowly reach equilibrium with the universe. And once again, I'll be at one with the universe and be at peace. And to me, that's comforting. I have nothing to worry about. There's no fear. There's no death. It's not going to be hell. I'm not going to burn it forever. Like, it's just going to be peaceful. And again, a little bit worried about how I'm going to die, but as long as it's in a peaceful way, you can just kind of fall asleep and not worry about anything. And to me, that's not really depressing or sad. Maybe to the people who miss me, and that's sad, but as long as you live a good life and build this relationship with us and our loved ones, and and by good life, I don't necessarily mean just get rich and have fun, but like have a fulfilling life. I don't think that there's any objective purpose, which means that you have to create a purpose and make life worth meaning, like make life worth living and give life meaning. And to me, that just is liberating, and it's kind of calming to me. And
Kayla?
Well, I will just bridge the gap between what both of you guys said. I feel like, I get my comfort and peace from the chaos of not having any certainty about anything. Anything could be true. We could be aliens, to somebody else. Well, that doesn't make sense, but you know what I mean? There could be aliens, and the aliens are God. There could be
Once
God.
we go to Mars, we will be aliens.
There could be, no God, and we just made it up. Whatever it is, I'm cool with it. It's all fine. I just feel like, I want to just learn whatever I can and explore, and not really hold fast to any one truth.
Well, if we go to Mars, we will be aliens.
Yes.
Torél said a lot of good things there, and you both did. And one of the things that Torél said was, it makes this life matter more. And me personally, that is why. I'm the exact opposite. I don't care about this life. I don't care about it. I don't care at all, because I do know there's something better. And living forever in paradise, well, that's not what religion teaches you. You're not going to live forever in one place. What religion teaches you is that you're going to live forever because it's going to take forever to explore the universe. And that's what you're going to be doing. There is a place, heaven, and you can go back there. You're going to be, especially somebody like you, Torél, you're going to be visiting different solar systems and different galaxies and different everything, and being the universe. It's going to take forever to explore the universe, and so you're always going to be discovering something new for the rest of your life, and that's beautiful. When you talk about what God has in store for you, that's beautiful, because for the rest of your life, every single day will be a new discovery. You don't have that here. You don't have it. You don't have that here. But every single day in glory will be a new discovery. And so that's what makes it great for me. I'm going
to push back because I love that perspective. That's what I thought when I believed in God, and it's absolutely beautiful. I'm going to push back because we do have a little bit of that here, because we're never going to have all the answers, and that's why I love science.
Just a tad bit of that experience.
What?
Just a tad, just a little bit of that experience
Just a little bit. Not an eternity, but it's a taste.
Yeah, you got 70 years, 72 years.
Hopefully like 100 or so of, medicine and technology.
Yeah, that's true. Medicine and all the stuff they're trying to do, robotics and bionics and all that, we may be living there. I won't. Your kids might, my grandkids might, Nadia and them might be living until they're 125 because of all that.
Have you ever heard?
I'll be gone in 25 years. But go ahead.
This is kind of a diversion, but have you ever heard of simulation theory?
Simulation theory. Sounds familiar, but explain it to me.
Basically, computers are getting way more, just way faster, way more technologically advanced, and people are discovering, like, they're researching quantum computing, which is basically like instantaneous, like, communication, like literally like instantaneous, faster than light communication, and they're literally researching that right now. And so one day they might be able to create computers that are so powerful they could simulate universes within their CPU with actual conscious organisms. And you could hypothesize that if you had a really supercomputer that could simulate multiple universes, and then for every one universe, you could say simulate maybe 10 universes, which means that if, say, there's millions or an infinite number of potential universes, that means there's even more potential simulated universes, which means that most likely our universe is simulated and we live in a simulated universe. I don't subscribe to that idea, but it's a fun one.
In short, life is a simulation.
Life is a simulation.
Yeah. So, what else you got? What other questions you have, Kayla, written down there?
Well, those were the big questions that I had. I just kind of wanted to generally talk about the pros and cons of religion, but I don't know if we have time for that. That's kind of a long and deep discussion, I think, but we've talked about a lot already. I don't know.
Yeah.
You don't have any thoughts?
I kind of just said my closing piece a second ago, so I think this was a really good conversation. Thank you, both of you, for being open and having this discussion. And yeah, this was fun.
My pleasure. Have me on again. Let me know. It's gonna be happy hour, right? Wasn't aware. I would
for sure.
Would have my drink with me.
Every hour is happy hour, right? No, I'm actually subscribe to
well, that. Non-alcoholic happy hour.
No.
Unless you're drinking every hour of the day. But yeah, that was good. This is very good. It was fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. I guess we're signing off. Thank you for anyone who's listening, who supports and subscribes. We appreciate it. And we'll keep at it. We're gonna keep doing this and having real deep, serious conversations that we all feel are important for us to keep having. So yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks Kayla. Thanks Dad. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
All right, take care, guys.